The DIESOL podcast.
Digital integration in English as a second or other language. Episode 10 with Cate Tolnai. Hello and welcome to the DIESOL podcast, episode number 10. Ixchell, can you believe it? We've made it to episode 10.
I know. We survived the first 6 months.
They say that podcasts, if they make it to 10, then they're more likely to keep on going. So that's good.
Oh, awesome.
All right. So today, we're going to jump right into it. We have Cate Tolnai on for the episode. And Cate, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you. So Cate,
we're excited.
We are very excited. And so Cate is the co-author of Power Up Your Classroom, Reimagining Learning Through Gameplay, and we'll talk about that in a little bit.
She is also adjunct faculty at Krause Center for Innovation at Foothills College, where she teaches Edtech online courses.
And finally, Cate is also has launched a new company, Buoy Consultants, where she focuses on implementations of programs and services. So we're going to talk about all those things, Cate. We're excited. There's a lot to cover here. And of course, let's start. Well, how are you?
I'm good. I'm really good. Yeah, I just got back from the dog park. It's a beautiful day in Pasadena. It's all good.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So Cate, we were kind of had this loose plan, and when we're trying to kind of figure out how we're doing the interview shows, but we're trying to go with loose conversations with people about topics that they like and what they want to talk about. And since you like gaming and gameplay and gamification,
how did you know?
I had a feeling. I happened to just like pull it out of the air, but
good.
But so we were kind of throwing around this idea of building a game together for the show, on the show and for the show, and having people listen in and just kind of see what the real process of actually building a game looks like, right?
I love it.
And so
it's very ambitious of us, don't you think?
Yeah. We'll see how it goes.
The good thing is we don't have to start from scratch. We can take game mechanics that we know and love and just smush them together into something cool and new.
It's going to be a huge success. I'm calling it now.
Well, you know how they used to do app smashes. Now we can do games.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Okay. So let's start. Before anything, let's actually just start talking a little bit about games, gamification, some of the ideas that people need to know, because we keep talking at all the different conferences about these things, but there's still a lot of people that just aren't sure, like, what is gamification? What is, gameplay and what are the role of games in the classroom and all of these different things, right? So what are the key things that you want people to know, kind of before we get into actually trying it?
Well, okay. So here's one of the things I have found as I've presented on this topic over the years is that if people aren't comfortable with the words, then they just don't talk about it. And so I think it's really important. One of the things that Lindsay and I built into our book was a glossary, because we wanted to, even though there's multiple definitions for some of these terms, like we wanted to at least put ourselves out there and like take a stake in the game and be like, in our book, when we're talking, when we're creating and say these words, this is the context. And so it's really awesome to start there. And I love that you already brought up game-based learning versus gamification, because they sound alike and they're very closely related. They're just not the same thing at all. And the easiest
alike, but they're totally different.
Yeah, they're completely different. And so in simplest terms, game-based learning is when the game itself is the learning activity. So let's rewind. I'm going to rewind to when I was teaching history in middle school, and we had a test coming up, and we would create like Jeopardy review games, or let's go with Jeopardy review games. And so the whole act of playing that game of Jeopardy was to learn the content or review the content. That's game-based learning. Okay. Gamification is when you take an activity that is not a game and you lay game mechanics over it And so now the question is, well, what the heck are game mechanics? So it's basically, if you were to take any game and deconstruct it into these little like building blocks, these little Lego blocks that come together to build the game, those are the mechanics. So let me give you an example. You're back in that same history classroom. Instead of playing Jeopardy review, you have a review session where the teacher is asking a question and the students are replying. As soon as they get the right answer, they get to jump up. Someone on their team comes to the center, grabs the Nerf ball, and tries to make a basket in the trash can.
Oh.
And if they make the basket, the team gets 10 points. And everybody's excited. And P.S., they're learning, right? So that would be an example of 2 review activities that are actually game-based learning, the first being Jeopardy, and gamification being a review session where you've laid game mechanics of taking turns, running a timer, right? You have to shoot the basket in 5 seconds, make the basket, the potential of failure, right? These are all mechanics that make games possible. And so that's the best way to understand the difference.
Okay. So, which one do you prefer?
Oh man, they're both awesome when they're the right fit. So I would say like I probably the first sip of KoolAid in this area for me was in gamification, because I'm such a big fan of micro-credentials and digital badges and taking big concepts and deconstructing it into little bits of learning, and then setting up challenges and awarding with a digital badge that they can take with them, right? Like that whole concept of badging is an example of gamification. But as I continue to be in this space, I really love the frameworks that we've been able to put out there for educators. And obviously, like, when you present on something, you end up like feeling way more informed on topics, and like you grow so much as a presenter when you share it. And the more I've been in this space, the more I've really come to appreciate the science behind game-based learning, like the neuroscience and the creativity and the ideation, and the way you can empower your students to own learning in a different way when they construct an activity or a quest, in the way that they want to. So that it's really powerful when you see game-based learning, when the kids are creating the games, for sure.
Oh,
for
that's
sure.
so interesting. We're gonna have to talk about that. Make sure that we get into that. We'll take
Okay.
a note somewhere.
Making a note, currently making a note.
Yes. Because one of the things that I've always wondered about, or just kind of seen people do around games in the classroom, is especially when we're doing like stuff for English language learners and all of those things, I am always finding that like people feel like games are, I don't know how to say it, just like not a waste of time, but like a time filler, right? So sometimes people do these like games as time fillers, or it's like, I don't want to do a game. I want to do something that they're really going to learn from. I'm like, no, hold on a second. And like, stop, because that right there, the thinking is the issue, right? And so, doing games in the classroom is an activity that is a learning process, and it's not just like, I don't know, like I just worry that people do it, but they feel guilty about doing it because it's not.
It's
like
it's incredibly formative, like if designed correctly. And again, that was our objective with the book too, is like, how can we engage what we call game curious educators to start to kind of abandon that baggage that you're acknowledging, because it's super real,
right.
Like I mean, like even the first example I give is a review game, which even in and of itself is kind of like an extra add-on. So it's really easy for people to say, I don't have time for that. It's just another gimmicky,
I've heard that a lot.
Right. And so we did put together a framework for game design where it's like, it almost mimics I don't hate to say it. It kind of mimics a lesson plan in that you start with a clear objective. Like, what is your instructional focus? What's the standard? What are you actually trying to get your students to learn? So we can, when we build out our game in a few minutes here, we can follow this framework, because I think it's really important. Like, what's the hard objective? What's that standard? And then how are we going to design it? So what are the action steps people are going to take? What's the setting going to look like? You're going to use a game board, or you're going to use something digital? You're going to use your Monopoly board and repurpose it with like new names of streets. Like, what are you going to do there? And then the challenge. So this is actually, the challenge is so fun. That's where you get to kind of figure out the kind of quest or the kind of activity that's going to take place in the game. So you can look at, are your people trying to solve a puzzle? Are they building something are they collecting pieces along the way? So, so really it helps to have a background in any sort of gameplay, because we can pause and just go, oh, like Monopoly is actually an example of collect, because you're going around the board collecting money, but it's kind of build, because you are also like potentially building an empire, you know? And so if you haven't like paused to think about that, you know, as its own topic, you don't realize that that's what's going on.
Well,
and then
one of the nice things about this is that everybody has a background, right? Even just if it's your childhood background, right? Like none of us
even
grew
tic-tac-toe. I mean, that's a crappy game, but tic-tac-toe.
We all have played games. And again, for us, when we're dealing with our ELLs, right? They all have games too, right? So the concept of playing games and things is something that everyone can quickly adapt to and jump into. And I think this is a really big thing for our field and for our community, because it's like we want to recognize that they already have a background knowledge and an understanding of how many of the mechanics work. They just have to see how it applies to this particular game or this particular activity, right?
Well, and to that point, like, I also think it's important to pause and consider this as an opportunity to shift. Like, it's a culture shift opportunity, because what we're really doing is we're reprioritizing instructional play at every grade level and for every learner. And when we carve out that really mindful time for play, not just for the sake of play, which is super great when we're talking like K3, but for some reason around like third or fourth grade, when textbooks start to work their way into the curriculum and it's like, goodbye play, we have no more time for that. It's all hardcore learning. And that's, you know, and kids lose the opportunity to fail forward or, you know, really truly collaborate and like take risks together and all the cultural pieces of like being on a team and like taking a risk together and wondering if your team's with you, you know, it's so that's like the play mindset. I refer to this a lot as like the power up classroom mindset, because and so with the mindset, I like to shift towards a culture of awesome, where everybody can win.
Culture of awesome.
Culture of awesome.
Nice. Are you hashtagging that one out there? We're going to start doing it.
I'm not. I really should.
Yeah, why not? There should be stickers. Make some stickers.
There should.
Get some stickers going. We got to get them.
Because I need more. You know me. Yes. I need more stickers.
All right. So you want to do this?
Yeah.
Let's make it. Let's make this game.
All right.
All right, Ixchell. Oh, well, actually, I guess we'll have to throw this out, but like, we have not planned this at all, right? We're just came in.
I know. I'm sitting here going, do you want me to send you a graphic organizer? Because I got one.
Yes. Well, it should be part of it for sure.
We'll put it in the show notes. I'll email it to you guys like literally the second.
Yeah.
Keep talking.
Okay. So we want to build a game, and this was the idea, and we didn't talk about we didn't talk about anything. So we're just kind of going to see what happens here. Ixchell, you figure it out. What do we need to build a game around? What can we use for our students?
We are building a game. Wait, what you mean? Any topic?
Well, I don't know. Like I was thinking, because for ELs, like maybe a grammar point, or do we want to do something that is less like, because the only problem with doing a grammar thing is that it is decontextualized, right? But perhaps we could contextualize it inside of the game, or perhaps it's just again we don't even know if we're going to put it in gamified or if we're going to do a game-based learning thing out of it. We haven't discussed anything, but the whole idea for everyone listening is that we can just jump into it and start with with whatever background we have. So there's no prep going into it.
So if I had to choose today what I wanted my students to practice or review or learn through this activity, if it's a grammar point, it would be conditionals. I think conditionals is a difficult topic.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Conditionals super useful.
Can we do that?
My students were haranguing me about conditionals just the other day. So.
And we just talked about conditionals too.
Well, and actually conditionals sounds great because the if then is totally a game mechanic, right?
And then I wish, the I wish, and
okay. Kate, that's what we want you to help us.
Sending you your copy right now. Hold on.
Okay.
But yes. Okay. So instructional focus for the game. Does there happen to be a standard aligned to your focus? I bet there is.
There probably is. Ixchell, what standard are you looking for?
Don't ask me.
Oh, it's fine. You
No, so it would be something like.
Are you talking about like?
We're talking about like TESOL standards.
TESOL standards for us, I guess.
I mean, ideally, if we really want to legitimize the game design, I think it matters. But for this exercise in this game design sprint, which look, I just named what we're doing.
Hashtag game design sprint.
Yeah. Then I think you're good to go. In my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just sent you a template. Okay, but it's a template. It's going to force you to make a copy. So Ixchell, make a copy and then send that to us, and then we can do it together.
Okay. Making the copy.
This is so real.
Sharing the copy.
Hey Brent. Power up. There we go. Okay, I just had to fill the white.
Let me know that you can access that.
Yeah, I can see you guys in there.
Okay.
Cool. Okay. So now, Kate, we have your template. Is this something we can share with the listeners?
Oh, a version of it. Yeah, I'll send you one that's free to go.
Cool.
This is the first one I could pick up for us to just build in the game right here. But
all right.
This is the hashtag Power Up Classroom. DL Design Framework Worksheet.
Nice. Yay. Okay. So walk us through this.
Perfect. So title of your game. Again, my background's like in English and history. And so I always do that last because I don't even know what the heck game I'm building until I build it. And then I'll title it.
Yeah.
So we're going to start with the objective. What's your instructional focus for the game? Which standards align to your focus? And which hard skills will your learners be challenged to master? So you guys just identified the hard skill. So Ixchell, you can type that right in there.
Okay.
Which is what?
Conditionals.
Conditionals. Okay, sorry. What is conditionals again?
Conditional statements, if statements,
if then
real
statements.
and if then statements.
Okay.
So students being able to use the clauses and understanding how one idea, if some situation happens, then this next part might happen, or we can talk about unreal conditionals. If I win the lottery, I will, I will buy a new house or anything like that. But then
is there like vocabulary associated to that, or different types of conditional statements that they need to be aware of?
Yeah. So there are. Well, the vocabulary is kind of sentence stems, right? If we're just going with if then right now. But we can also talk about the unreal and the real conditionals, right? So, when I win the lottery, I am going to blah, 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 right? So which would be
an example of completely real and accurate. And that is in my near future.
Yeah. And so we can play around with a few of those different frames. Ixchell, which ones are you thinking about for your students right now?
They have a really difficult time with unreal conditionals in the past. Okay. So if I had done my homework, I wouldn't have had to stay after class. It's the would not have had to that throws them off.
That is tricky.
So what's their challenge? Is their challenge around like forming it? Like forming the statement or understanding what it means? Or translating?
I think it could be. It depends. I think it has probably been both, but we either see where they have internal, it's forming the structure in the main clause. So they'll say like, if I had done my homework, and then it throws them off like, wait, why are you putting two hads? Or why are you putting the modal with, So
So it's the structure, it's the
structure,
it's all of it. Okay.
And It's all just a mouthful. So a mouthful to say.
For sure. Okay. Cool. So now that we've identified the hard skill, and the hard skills, actually, we're going to go into the design. So here's where we're going to kind of put that hard skill concept kind of in the back of our mind. And the questions to think about, do you want to create a fully immersive game experience, which would be an example of game-based learning? So where the game is the learning, or will you insert game mechanics into a classroom activity, which is an example of gamification? And then we're going to talk in a moment about the role that educational technology will play.
Okay. Brent, you want me to take that?
Sure.
Well, because it's always a race for how much time I can spend on this activity, but yet I want to be able to do something. I tend to go with something with gamification.
Okay. So you're going to take an activity that you already do and maybe put some game mechanics on top of it. Rather than take a lesson. So how do you typically teach this lesson?
Hold on a second. I want to throw out just a possibility and we can decide on this together. But just thinking in terms of game-based learning, what if, because it's if then, right? If you know, there's a condition happening, that's such a good thing for like choose your own adventure kind of games too, right? Like,
yes.
So if you say like, you know what I mean? Like if he had taken the treasure, he wouldn't have met the princess, or you know whatever. I mean, so some sort of language around those types of things where, maybe we could throw out a like an ultimate ending and a starting point, and then they have to use 3 or 4 conditionals to be able to show that they can get to that. Oh,
they have to construct their own conditionals to get from point A to point B.
Yeah, that's kind of.
Or to have the zebra get to the water hole. They have to construct conditional to do so. It's almost like coding. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Like, computational thinking, right? Like,
and so like to make it work, and so if we put a construct around them of like, hey, there are 4 steps, you have to get there in not 3 steps, not 5 steps, you have to create 4 scenarios where you use this past conditional to explain the step of how we started at point A and ended at point B or whatever it is.
You know, it would be so fun. And we're going to talk about tech in a second, but what if we made the game board in a Google drawing, and let's just go with zebras and water holes, and let's put them in the middle of Africa, and let's put like a palm tree, a pile of rocks, a big dry desert. And like, they have to use those as part of their if then statements. If I take a right at the palm tree, then I will be directly next to the pile of rocks. If I jump over the pile of rock, is that too much? Is this too much? Are we getting like crazy?
Works for me. I don't know.
That works for me. That works for me too.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So it could be, I mean, we're only giving them 4 opportunities. So it can be a very small safari, and maybe we're not doing safari. My God, maybe let's just not do something that complicated and African and distant. I don't know if that's not the right fit, but I'm just.
No, that works. That works.
Yeah, I think the plan, I mean, we're just trying to collaborate and put the ideas together and see, because then we can offer it. And if we make the Google drawing and, you know, have a zebra and a couple different things, then people can steal the drawing too from the show notes.
Exactly. Yeah, they could actually do this to see if it works. Because this is the best part about creating these is like that you dream them up, like, here, and then you go use them and you're like, oh crap, that did not work. That was a hot mess. I gotta go fix it.
All right, so let's do it. So we're saying sorry, Ixchell, I did come in and steal that from from where you were talking about it. Are you comfortable with that?
I'm totally comfortable with that. The reason why I went with gamification, like I said, is because in my mind I'm thinking, what's the easiest way to create something fun and educational? But now but that's what we all feel, right? And that's the fear that by trying to build a game, it's going to take so much time. It's going to take a lot of resources. But here we are now, after Brent proposed an idea, and now we have like a concept for game-based learning. Well, and I would say, like, based on your first instinct, I actually think gamification could totally work too. So I don't want to undercut your idea. Like, no.
I think, you know, considering how you would normally instruct it, and perhaps adding like for example, I do this thing with dice, and I get here. I'll show you. I get these we can put these in the show notes too. But I just get these little wooden blocks, like craft blocks that are 1 inch, like die, and then you can actually write on. You can write directly on them or on little stickers, and then what you could do is put different sentence stems on those, roll them, and have them construct if then statements or conditional statements using the sentence stems that they happen to roll. Right.
Yeah,
so it's no different than just assigning it. It's just adding that layer of chance and play on top of the activity. So that you could totally have done that too. But
Awesome. Okay. So just a different way to move it. Right. Yeah.
Totally.
Okay, so what we're going to do for now is we're going to try to get the zebra to the watering hole in 4 steps. And
4 steps.
It must be 4 steps, not 3 steps, not 5 steps.
Right.
Okay.
And then the next part of design is what role will educational technology play in the game? So is it going to be a no-tech, a low-tech, or a high-tech?
Okay, so if we're putting in a Google drawing and we're creating this picture here, then that's fairly high tech, right? I mean, students.
High tech for you, but what about for the players? Like, I would argue that that's probably like a low tech, because unless they're building it.
So are they just looking at the picture? Is that what you mean? Or are they going to actually move the zebra
that's what we were
around?
going. Honestly, I think with the complexity of conditional statements, we probably don't want to lose them in the also design a Google drawing game board.
So we just provide them with the picture.
I would think so, at least at this point. And then, maybe it just becomes something they are obsessed with. And then, the follow-up is make your own,
Yeah. Okay. So then it becomes low tech, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. For the student.
I'm good with that.
Cool. All right. So 3rd section of the framework is the challenge. So here's where you're going to figure out what's the game objective. And I really encourage the game designers to think about how ready their learners are for the challenge that they're going to put out there. Because I know you guys your audience is primarily, the students are older, but even middle schoolers, there's a lot to be said about really keeping your pulse on their maturity around failing in front of their peers and frustration and what that does, with their relationships with each other. But all that being said, there's so many different challenges, and I've put together about 6 to choose from here, but so what we talked about before. So are they going to be solving a mystery, hide and seek, building a physical world, collecting, controlling, or trying, battling or something? Or the last one is surviving, which would be like a puzzle thing. So what do you think? Which challenge do you think fits our idea so far?
Well, this is a journey, right? We're taking the zebra to the water hole, and they're gonna. This
is a power up. Journey. I think so. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can see it in a couple different settings, right? So number one, I could see it as a journey, but you said that, sorry, I'm looking, you said there was a last one after control. Survive. That could also possibly be one, right? Because it's
I think so too.
Because the challenges in the middle, if the zebra gets stuck at the rock, right, the lion could eat it.
That's a puzzle to solve, right?
Or something like that. And so if we're actually walking that zebra through the safest path for them to get to, and they have to do the 4 steps, then that could be part of it. They could also be, I don't know if it doesn't quite count as collecting.
But it's
you could also be collecting things though as you go along.
That's what I'm saying. Even my mind is shifting our initial ideas. I'm looking at these, right? And that's what it sounds like you're doing too. You're like, well, actually, hide and seek. It would be hide and seek if we were to say that the zebra is being chased by an antelope.
Hunter.
You're a hunter. Oh God.
Chased by an antelope. You're very kind.
Like
mine's gonna be murdered by a lion and a hunter, and you're like, an antelope is chased.
Knowledge just coming right in center. I'm on a safari in my head.
A photographer might catch them in the frame. That's so nice.
Well, right. I mean, it could go a bunch of different ways. So if the challenge of the game is to save the zebra from the antelope or the hunter, then it's really a hide and seek game. If it's, or I guess that could even be a survive game, right?
Oh, you know what? I'm just going to throw this out there again. We don't have to move this way, but what if you have a lion on one side and a zebra on the other side, and
it's a race,
and they're racing, but like the lion is trying to catch the zebra and the zebra is trying to get to the water, the safety of the water.
Completely powered up this game. Okay,
talk about next level.
That's the next level. I mean, that again, this is why we have to think readiness of my players, right?
Okay, yes.
How ready, like what is the cognitive load we want to ask them to take on? And that's why I originally said, wait, is it going to be too much to take them on an African safari if that's too out of context for them culturally? So we do have to think about that.
Okay, so I love my idea, but for our purposes now, we want to keep it simple, right? And we can add to it, and anybody can add to it later, right? This is a whole.
Well, it's ultimately too like how much of a cognitive load will it be to get them to be thinking about conditional statements? Yeah. And you don't want to lose your objective in the challenge of the game, because that's a misstep I think a lot of people take is they get wrapped up into the game and you forget what your objective is. And so if you lose your objective, what is the point of game-based learning, really?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So reprioritizing that challenge. And if you're telling me that this is an area of real stretch for them, then let's let the challenge not be the stretch. Okay. Let's let that be simple.
Cool. So they could do that like in week 2 or week 3 after they're more comfortable with the language.
I think so. Cool. Or you can level it up and add that other. Nope. You could take the same game board next week after they've played with this one and add the lion and add that level of challenge.
Awesome.
And then it's like, boom, repurpose.
I love it. Okay.
Okay. And I'm just looking at the framework here. So what's the ultimate challenge? How will this be achieved? I think we've identified that, but again, just getting the audience to think through some of those deconstructing the challenge part of this. How will the players interact with the content, with each other? Oh, this is important. How will that? So how are they gonna have to play with each other? Is this a one-on-one game, player on game, or is this player versus player?
I like to have. So I would do pairs, and then I don't think that I would do the first time. I might not do a competition with all of the different pairs, but then eventually they would like to compete. So would it be like, you mean group versus group?
It could be. Yeah. I mean, I could see it like the first time being, I think it's kind to give them a thought partner in it, especially if that's like a good fit for your students. But if your students are more comfortable kind of doing this by themselves and taking that risk quietly, personally, then maybe it becomes just a player versus game. So you would decide that, right? If the learners are better prepared to do player versus game, then you just have them do it by themselves to just get in the space, and then find a partner, play it again. And then maybe a couple times later, then we start to add some of those other layers of challenge to the game. And we say, okay, here's a lion in the game, and now you have to do it with a third person. Or now it's this team versus this team. There's a lion and an antelope. Who's going to get there first? Right? So the complexity grows as their confidence grows in the game.
Yeah, I was right on line with Ixchell there with the partner, just because that way they can bounce ideas off of each other and confirm that they're comfortable with the language and that they both agree. Because then when you say, hey, when both of you actually agree, then they can negotiate meaning, make sure that they understand.
And that's
super smart.
As many speaking opportunities as we can give them is always the best way for them to practice the language. So
they can work in pairs, and then you called that player versus game.
Player versus game versus player versus player. It's kind of like one player game versus multiplayer.
Okay, let's do that.
Cool. And the fourth part would be figuring out the assessment ahead of time. So how are you going to measure mastery of the content? Again, if this is like if this is substituting an actual direct instruction lesson, then how you want to make sure you're checking for understanding and especially and eventually hitting mastery. So how will you measure mastery? Who's going to measure it? Is it going to be the learner, the player themselves, or the instructor, you? And then how are the learners going to showcase that they have that new mastery?
First thing that comes to mind is if we're doing this we got two things to consider. If we're doing this in a Google Drawing, we could actually have open frames for them to write the sentences in at the bottom of the Google Drawing. So the 4 sentences that they could use, and they click it right into there.
So there would be some,
or if we're trying to keep it lower tech, we could simply have a separate piece of paper for them to look at and fill out while they're looking at the drawing. So the higher tech for them to be able to log in and actually do it, lower tech to just have a paper with just some lines for them to write it in. And then you could the teacher could confirm the lines, or ultimately, possibly, you could pass the papers around to the other pairs that are doing it and see if they think that the lines that their classmates had written were still actually gets the zebra to the location you're trying to get to.
You could even, going back to what you said about Lowtech, I'm thinking about classrooms that don't have one-to-one devices, right? So you could project the Google Drawing at the front of the classroom, or you could print it and give it to them like a version of treasure map or something. And then they can actually like draw the way, like manipulate it with with a pen and paper. Amazing.
What?
This.
What kind of technology are you talking about?
So
I like that. Yeah. Because, so I think the way we're talking about it right now, it could be any of those 3 different things, right? It could be on the personal device, or it could be on a projector, or the teacher can print it out on a piece of paper. So what we're providing, I think any of those choices should work. So I think that maybe we should still go for paper right now, as the writing, as the assessment, so they can actually just write it down, and then the picture itself is a separate thing.
Okay. So then the how you measure the mastery of the content, I guess, if the statements are accurately written to get the zebra to the watering hole, I guess that.
Then we know
if that challenge has been met.
You just gave us a conditional statement. Good job, Kate.
And then who's going to determine that is the learner. Like you said, pass it to somebody else. Maybe the other learners are going to play it. Or sorry, the other learners are going to
check or assess,
or are they just submitting it to you and you're going to check?
I would have a round of students assessing their own writing, and then ultimately there's going to be one who can maybe not tell you what the error is, but notice that there's an error, that something's not right if they haven't mastered it. And then teacher can confirm and reteach or ask them, or not reteach, but redirect them to, okay, now, so how would you correct that statement? Then you notice something's wrong, but now how, and then have that at class discussion. And then
I love it. It might be fun too. Oh, I'm thinking of like, if we do have the map projected and then turn it into like, let's all help everybody. So if you're in pairs and you have one person sitting and making changes to the conditional statements, the other person stands in the front of the room and delivers the statements and like physically moves their hand on the map. And then the group's like, no, it's not a right, it's a left. And it's not like they're in trouble or they got it wrong. It's just they're revising and their partner is changing it in real time.
Right.
So you're getting speaking and listening at the same time. And that's kind of group accountability if they're ready to fail in front of their peers.
Yes.
Right? You don't want to embarrass people. I don't want to embarrass people.
No.
Yeah. I like it. Yeah. So there's all sorts of ways
you can do it.
I mean, that's the great thing is like, so when we start talking about this, it's just like, oh, I could go this way. I could go this way.
Yeah.
And it's all, I mean, I think when we look at this at the end, it's a fairly simple activity, but there's like so much fun and game. There's so many elements to it.
Because like the creativity starts flowing.
Right.
Right.
Start going.
Imagine if you give this challenge to your students to do. So you play it once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. The next week, they do it. They build the Google drawing. They challenge each other to do it. I mean, that's when it just goes,
Right.
Crazy.
Then their version is better than
Always
our
version. Always better. So the last part of the framework is to think about your next steps, because like at least in our mind and Lindsay and mine's mind, what we believe is that best games never quite end, or there's going to be an opportunity to level up. So I shouldn't say that. I mean, even Mario ends, but like it's not Mario like it's a never not a one and done. So what will your players be encouraged to do once mastery is achieved? So once they get the zebra to the watering hole, how are they going to level up? What's next? Because you're going to have to differentiate.
Okay, so now is this different than saying like next time we want them to design the game, or would that?
Or do you mean?
Or you mean?
Oh,
like,
good question. Okay, it's kind of like saying if you finish early, you can help the person sitting next to you, and that's all. Like I was a kid that finished early, and I was always like, I don't want to help the kids sitting next to me, or the kids like, I don't want her to help me. Like that wasn't a next step for me because it was conditional based on like relationships, but. Maybe a next step is turn your if then statements into a short story, or or design the next place that the zebra has to go, and the group will play that next time. Maybe a way to level up is to encourage your students that are more proficient to actually be a part of the game design, so that you can kind of build the experts in the room.
Yeah,
I like the writing part because we don't in my scenario with my students, we don't get a lot of time to do writing. And by already having those statements created, you've pretty much outlined your paragraph.
Right.
So I think it's just like, it's kind of, it's already, the structure's already there and they're just cleaning it up. But any chance they can get to write at the end, write whatever it is, they're internalizing or promoting internalization of that concept.
Yeah.
It's a process of writing just through a game.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
Got it. So, and as a true level up, it's not going to make or break the child's mastery of the game or mastery of conditional statements, because ultimately the mastery comes if you already said it. If you get the zebra to the watering hole, you've mastered the game. But the level up is, okay, where can we take you further? What's your next step? And maybe it turns into somebody acts it out and they record a video of it. I mean, who knows? I'm thinking of all the listening and speaking stuff, but you really can create like a menu of next steps when it comes
a role play. Yeah, exactly. A role play is just another idea to get them to practice.
Totally. Like a couple pairs that finish early, go put a skit together. You're going to perform it for us.
That's cool.
Your conditional statements. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, I love it. So I mean, you have all these different ways. I'm sure people listening are like, no, you should be doing this. And then that idea is great too, right? Like that's the cool thing, because we have the 3 of us to bounce each other off, but then there's someone listening and their ideas are probably awesome or better, or, so let's also make sure that in these, we'll put these all into a Google Drive, but let's have an open share notes in case anybody wants to throw their extra ideas too.
Cool. I like that idea.
Cool.
So then the last part of the framework template that the listeners are going to get is to, again, just articulate high tech, low tech, no tech, which we did already, but it just gives a couple more questions like, is this if the game's digital, will you need devices? It's more like that planning piece. Like, is this going to be a 1-to-1? Are you going to need projection? Are you going to need audio? Like, what are you going to need? And then similarly, look and feel. So if, what materials do you need? You need to make sure to make that Google drawing. You need to, are there certain fonts or images you want to use, colors? So the template you're going to get actually gives you a place to like put links to images you might want to use, or ideas, inspiration you have out there, or just a way to like kind of collect all the raw materials you need to build the game. Now that you've have this really beautiful dynamic framework that we have created in less than 40 minutes.
Yeah,
I know, this is so cool.
And you can literally play these games. This could be 2 weeks of instruction on conditional statements, like this one game. It's crazy.
But then you could plug this same game to other structures because
Totally
it
could.
has to be, right? So now you have, I don't know if we wanted, so now we wanted to do reported speech. So let's make questions about what happened to the zebra, and then let's have someone report.
You got it. So the cognitive load is lessening when it comes to the game and increasing with that content area mastery. And that's the sweet spot, right? When we can get them really engaged. And then you'll feel like when the safari's over, right? Like, let's go somewhere else. But they'll be familiar with it at least.
I love this too because I mean that structure of just moving from one place to another. There's so many fun ways for people to do it. Like they could be Spider-Man moving across the city. They could be like, you know,
characters in a book that they're reading, historical figures, like you know, and George Washington crossing the river, trying to get to wherever he goes.
Or battle maps. We study battle maps. So like this person made this decision at this location.
Like, you learned that the battle, that this battle ended this way. What if it ended the other way?
Yes.
Whole new scenario.
Yes.
You know, you could totally go there. Oh, you guys are so fun.
That's
this
awesome.
Is like wild. I've never done this before. This is super fun.
This is cool. I love it.
Yeah, this is awesome. So now we have a whole game for students to work through and different ways to approach it and yeah, like you said, what was that, 40 minutes or so?
Just about, yeah. Maybe even less, 35.
Now, what if our administrators give us a whole day to just do game-based, or what did we call this? What did you call it? The sprint?
I would call this a game design sprint.
Game design sprint. Oh my gosh. Think of the games that we could come up with.
I know. And then everybody shares them in one database. If your team if like everybody's like 3 of us are building this one and the other 3 over there, and then we share all ideas, and now we have a whole year's worth of game-based learning
in one day.
In one day.
Oh my God.
Oh my gosh.
Now look what you started.
It's a revolution.
That is so cool. There's, oh man, I'm like, I got all these things I want to do right now.
Yeah, I want to
Let's stop recording. I want to do other things.
Well, that's awesome. And I think this is like, to get meta on it, I think it's really important to note that like how engaged the 3 of us are in this design process. And I said it earlier, but like, you know, especially since you're dealing with adult learners, like let's carve, but forget that. Every learner, every kiddo is going to need an opportunity to have this choice and voice. And I think giving them a creative place to do it after we've modeled it and they get the idea that, you know, really the possibilities are endless, and the learning, like those foundational skills of collaboration and creativity and critical thinking, that's all happening. It just happened in real time.
And we all just have this innate thing about problem solving, right?
Yeah.
And surviving. So the argument that, well, this is for kids. No, absolutely not. That's a mute argument.
And so many people are gamifying, and so many educators are gamifying, and they have no idea.
Yes, absolutely.
I did a poster session at a conference, and I had one of those really big spinning wheels that go click, 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 you know, that like when you spin it, it like goes around. There's 14 wedges. And on each one, I put a different game mechanic, like taking turns, points, whatever, not letting kids, or being okay with failure. And I had people come up and spin it. And instead of winning, I said, okay, give me an example where your kids have taken turns in your class. And they would, boom, give it to me. And I'm like, you won, you gamified, you did a good job. And they're like, oh my gosh.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So we have a lot to work with, and anyone listening does too. So I think we're going to move into the end here. All right. So we do fun finds, Kate. It's just anything that's fun that you've been enjoying recently for the audience. So we'll start first, and then you can think of yours as we go through.
Perfect.
Ixchell, what do you have?
This time, of course, I do have a game. It is Goat Lords card game.
Goat Lords.
Goat Lords.
I'm intrigued.
You're collecting herds of goats, and some certain goats are more powerful than others, and you can steal herds of goats to become a goat lord. But it is a lot of fun. So check that one out. I think it's maybe about $10 on Amazon. But I love games, and that is one that I recommend.
Awesome. Mine is Quicks. It's a dice game. I don't know if you've ever played this one. Have you seen this?
I've maybe heard of it, but I've never played it.
How do you spell it?
QWIXX. QWIXX.
It would be something funky. Perfect.
Yeah. It's a numbers game, so you're like counting up and counting down and trying to use the dice in order to figure out where you're going to end up with things. It takes a round or two to get used to it, but I'm not a mathy person, but I really had a lot of fun with my family playing this recently. And then you compete against your your family or whoever you're playing with. It's a little hard to describe, and it did, like I said, it took me about 2 or 3 rounds of it to be like, what am I doing here? But then after we got it, then we were really having a great time. So Quicks dice game.
How fun. Okay, so as you can imagine, I've been presenting on this topic at every opportunity I can get to do so. And one of the finds I made recently, actually the idea came to me. I love scratch off lotto tickets.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? And the only way I knew to bring anything like homegrown DIY scratch off was to get the paint.
Oh.
And I'm like, I don't really think saying paint something to scratch off in a classroom is like a fair idea to even put out there, right? Like responsible on my part. But I went to Amazon and I was like, there has to be something like scratch off stickers or scratch off. There are scratch off stickers, friends.
Oh, nice.
Oh my gosh.
1-inch circles. And they are see-through stickers that have that scratch off cover. And so I was like, sweet, if those are 1-inch stickers, then I went to Canva and I made my own templates for scratch offs. And
Cool.
So the circle is just slightly smaller than the sticker. I'm showing, guys, you don't see this, but I'm showing them this on my little screen.
You've got a little piece of paper and it's got 3 circles on it, and you just stick the scratch off sticker right over the circle. And
ideally, I would write something underneath it.
Scratch off nothing. You win nothing.
Anticlimactic, Brent.
So that's how they do it.
But so I came up with a couple of these ideas. Like this one is reveal your project. And so the idea is there's 3 different types of projects under there, like interview a person, make a video, write an editorial article.
Oh, that's so cool.
Nice.
I want to do that.
And boom, gamified,
I want to do that. I'm going to do that.
And this one is scratch to learn. So if you want them to like research different topics or look at it from different perspectives, same idea.
Oh, nice.
So you can do the one scratch off and done, or you can have 3 projects in one scratch off and they just determine the order based on what they scratch off.
Oh, this is so cool. So we're going to put these into the show notes too.
Yeah.
Everything.
They're very inexpensive too. It's like $10 for 600 of them. Like it's a worthwhile little investment.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay. So scratch off things, and you can basically customize.
Scratch off stickers.
Scratch off stickers. So, Ixchell, what's new? What's going on? What do you got coming up?
I am getting ready to go to Tesol at the end of March. That's in Colorado. I'm not presenting this time, which is kind of nice because the pressure will be off. So if you see me out there, let me know and I'll get you some stickers or buttons.
Oh yeah. We also.
What about you?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, Q is coming up. So Q in Palm Springs, I'll be presenting there on Google. Googell. Google. So Google for ELLs. That should be really fun.
That's cool.
And then I'm doing some of the podcaster stuff with. Q is highlighting some podcaster activities this time around, and so I'll be participating in those as well. Meet the podcasters, and Tom from Tosa's Talking Tech is also doing like a podcaster booth where we're going to record an episode. And Ixchell, I mentioned this to you briefly, but DIESOL is going to be represented there. So
congratulations, Ixchell.
I just have to print out a big head for you and just carry it around next to me, so that we're both representing there.
That's awesome.
Kate, what do you got? Where can people find you soon?
So next week I'll be at CISC in Monterey presenting on Power Up. Presenting on Power Up Your Classroom. Week after that, I'm going to be at ETC up in Tulare with the amazing team from the Stanislaus County Office of Ed. Nice. And I actually get to do a mini keynote on Power Up, which is really fun. And then we're going to do another Power Up. And then I will be at Q for Meet the Authors.
Yes.
And,
cool. Very
and
cool.
I'm totally going to bring Power Up Classroom scratchers, and people will get to scratch off their little Power Up Classroom swag.
Can I get you to sign a copy of my book when we're there?
Yes.
I have mine right here.
Books.
What's that? Oh yeah, books. So yes, one surprise at the end of the show.
You have to tell it. It's your show.
Okay.
It's your surprise.
So Kate, you are kindly giving away a copy of your book for listeners of the show who have gone through us, listened to it, played it long, listened to the show and everything.
Survived the entire hour.
You survived. I think that hour went by quick for me. I know. It did too. Okay, so we true to form, we decided to make a game out of it, and so we have a secret word that was
repeated
throughout the show. And there was
maybe related to the topic of the book.
Yeah, there was a special keyword that we heard. We can tell everybody what it was, or should we let them go back?
I think we should tell them. They made it this far.
Yeah, they made it this far.
Okay, you deserve it.
Okay, so the keyword was Power up. Okay, so we had the goal was to say every time we said the word power up, right? And so in honor of your book. And so we are going to have how do we make people get to this? I guess it'll be in the show notes, right? Yeah, so people are going to go through the show notes, and if you heard the keyword, there's going to be a quick little form. If you fill out the form before March 3rd, right? Before March 3rd. So you have from the launch of this show, which is, the Monday, whatever Monday we're coming up on.
In a couple of days.
Mm-hmm. Couple 17th? Days. Well, yeah, it's what'd you say? 17th?
17th.
Yeah. So Monday the 17th to March 3rd. If you have listened to this episode or share it out with anybody, then you can go and fill in the form, and you can have a chance to win your own copy of Power Up Your Classroom from Kate and Lindsay. So we'll get that sent out, and then we'll be able to share that. So if anybody is going to Q, then Kate, they can have their copy when they come to Q and get your signature and talk to you about it too.
Give you an extra signature at Q if you bring it.
Nice.
I'll give you a Power Up Classroom coaster. I have those.
Oh yeah. Awesome. See,
cool.
So, we do have one more bit of business. Ixchell, we have the pins.
Yes. So we've been giving away these one-of-a-kind DIESOL pins by choosing reviews from our listeners. So if you'd like a chance to win one, you can leave us a review. And for our guests, for our interview guests, they get one for being on the show. Yeah, so you're getting one.
Yeah.
So the winner for this show is Bruno51. So Bruno51, if you're out there, please contact us. And Bruno51 writes, I really enjoy this podcast and everything Brent and Ixchell have to offer to the ESL community, an education field that could be overlooked when integrating technology in the classroom. Very useful and practical advice with technology tools and mixing in interviews from other professionals in the ESL world. I may be a bit biased in this review because my degree has an emphasis in TESOL, and this show speaks to my heart. Thank you, Brent and Ixchell. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Bruno. That's super cool. You're going to get a pin.
Yeah. So shoot us an email. Or
let us
contact
know who
us.
you are.
Let us know who you
it's
are.
moved away from like, I know who this person is to like, oh, cool. Other people are listening and we're getting downloads.
Real people.
Yeah. And Kate, we've talked about getting reviews. So review us and review Kate too at the same time. It's
review
tricky.
it.
It's hard. Yeah. So thank you, Bruno. That's very cool. And we very much appreciate it. So you can find us at diesel.org, and that is where the show notes will be. And you can also find us on Twitter. You can find the show at DieselPod, and you can find me at Brent G. Warner.
You can find me, Ixchell, at Ixy_Pixie. That's IXY_PIXY. And Kate, we can find you.
My name, Cate Tolnai. So at Cate Tolnai on Twitter and LinkedIn, same.
Kate with
and
a
that's
C.
Kate with a C.
Yes.
Kate with a C. In Italian, thank you is grazie. Grazie for tuning in to the DIESOL podcast.
Yay!
See you soon.
See you later. Power up. Because you're definitely going to be drinking when you're reading through this.
At least a cold, icy cup of water.
Yeah, cold, nice iced coffee, right?
Iced coffee.
All right, so
You guys are awesome. Thanks for having me. I had so much fun.
Thank you.
Yes.